So many white chairs, I don't know which one to sit in. Hello again. This is the part where you guys get to ask questions too, I hope. We have about 20 minutes, and the last time we spoke we had about 30, so I'm trying to figure out how we can compress everything there is to talk about. So we're going to maybe talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you guys are going to raise your hands, and we're going to let you ask Marissa the questions. Because you were just out here announcing things. As a matter of fact, it seems that Google's been announcing so many things that in preparing for this, I got a bit confused. So probably the biggest news that Google announced recently was that there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Larry Page. So what's it like working, with Larry firmly in charge, as opposed to that triumvirate approach that dominated Google for so many years, for a decade?
Oh, I think there's a lot of things that remain the same. I think especially in building products, we're still very focused on the user. A lot of that has remained very much the same. But I think the one thing that's been really good is I do think Larry's very focused on technology and on the products. And I think that this really brings those to the forefront. Where is the innovation coming from? What are we doing that's good for users? And there's always been a focus on that, but I think there's even now more intensity to that.
Part of what Larry did, I guess, to sort of declare that he was in charge, or at least it seemed that way, is that he reorged the structure. And there was some speculation that your role was diminished. And I just wanted to lay that out and sort of shoot the elephant in the room and ask, how do you feel about that?
Well, my role has remained pretty much unchanged through the reorg. So I came in at Google as an engineer, worked as an engineer for 2 years, then spent 10 years working on search, going from basically 0% market share to 72%. And then I made a big change last October to work on location, because I just think there's something really exciting and special happening here in terms of what the vision for the future of the whole. But that said, it's been a reasonably new transition for me, just 4 or 5 months. And so, I think we still, we've released some good things, but we still need to prove ourselves. And so, I really wasn't expecting there to be very many big changes in our area, because the big changes for us are going to be focused on browser.
Before we dive into the location piece, I wanted to ask you about search, because there's more news about search. Larry apparently decided to change the name of the search group to the knowledge group. Can you give us some insight, given your decade of experience with search, as to what that's all about?
Sure. Well, I think that we think at Google around search as being really broad. Yes, it's one of our core products, but also the vision for where it can go is really expansive. And that said, for a lot of people, when they think of search, they think of the very apparatus they use today. There's a box, you type words in it, you get results back. And we did a lot over the recent years to really change that equation, bringing in universal search so you can get all kinds of different types of results, doing things like Google Instant so you could actually get your results much faster in a different way of interacting. But I think we still would like it to be more expansive. So I think one of the reasons that Larry retitled the search group is, we still have a search group. It was kind of misunderstood that maybe we don't have a search group, which would be kind of crazy.
Google's getting out of the search business.
So we have a
kind of
search
like
group.
Microsoft getting out of the business.
But it's been renamed Knowledge, because I think the idea is to reimagine search as something that's much more expansive, that's less about keywords into a box and is more about how can you find and explore information. And we had this idea for a while of you are the query, right? But it's not just about the words you put in, it is about your context and where you are, which is one of the things that I'm very excited about in location, because I spend a lot of time working on local maps. But looking forward, I imagine an entire suite of applications that I refer to as contextual discovery, where you're not doing search, you're not putting terms, but based on where you are, a little bit of the context around you, can we do a much better job bringing you information proactively rather than having you ask for it? And I think that there's a lot that can happen there, and I think that we wanted knowledge to reflect that potential.
So one of the things that might contextually come to you based on your location as an answer to a query that you didn't necessarily make with intent, but rather with expectation, right? I'm here, I'm walking down the street, and up pops on my mobile device a Google offer. So can you tell us more about Google offers?
Sure. Well, we really don't have Google Offers yet.
It doesn't exist.
It does not exist. That said,
It's all over the blogosphere, but it's the only place it is.
John, my hand's interesting now, we're just backstage. That said, we are looking at the offer space. We've released, for example, loyalty offers, so when you check in, you can now get deals in various locations. And we are interested in the offers space, and one of the things that you need to do as you're getting ready to potentially release an offers product is reaching out to businesses. So we have started that process in a few locations where we're reaching out to local merchants and trying to understand what offers they may want to bring together. But I likened it to, it's kind of like a movie, right? There's the part where you cast the people, and of course you actually make the movie, and then you eventually release it. So we're kind of at that casting phase.
You're in pre-production.
We're trying to figure out, like, what would we offer, what would actually be good for users.
With your announcement this morning, you may have moved from pre-production to filming, because you've got business photos now, and I can't imagine that if someone asks Google in to take a picture of the interior of the business, that isn't an opportunity for you to sign the business up for Google Offers, right?
Well, today that isn't happening, but today we are doing the business photos where business owners had come, they've asked us, they invite us into their location. We go in, we take pictures, and we make it part of Google Maps as well as their place page.
Google famously tried to buy Groupon. How did that build-buy exercise go?
I'm not really able to comment on acquisitions and speculation there, so.
Well, then shortly thereafter, here we have Google Offers, so obviously you're serious about the space. You see it as strategic to your future.
Well, we think that it's that offers, loyalty offers, as well as other types of offers, are just good for users. They get a person a much better negotiated rate on something that they're excited to do, and we think that the level of personalization and targeting in terms of really making a user happy is something that's exciting for the offer space.
One of the values of being that close to the business is that you're gathering a ton of really interesting data that you can, at scale, and of course by removing personally identifiable information, start to see patterns that allow you to create new products and services that are, as you say, good for the user. But Apple and Google both found themselves in a bit of a tempest last week and the week before, when everyone woke up and realized that these phones have location data in them. Particularly senators woke up as they tend to do. Whoa, there's something I can say that gets the attention. What's your view on the use of location data, and how do you think customers feel about being quote unquote tracked?
Well, I think that location data is really, really useful. And when you look at things like our Panorama photos, being able to have a geotagged piece of information, putting it on Google Earth, things like tweets are geolocated, actually being able to use your phone and actually create a piece of data that has some geo information in it is generally really useful, because the context of, oh, well, this tweet came from Los Angeles versus this tweet came from Pakistan actually is really a fundamental piece of information. I think that right now there's a lot of confusion around what different phones and what different operating systems do. And in the case of our Android system, we do opt-in. So it's off by default. You have to turn it on in terms of the operating system that it ships. We offer notice and control. So as you turn it on, we tell you that you're turning this on, and you have the ability to turn it on and on. It's also important to recognize that the information that's transmitted back to Google is anonymized and only used in aggregate. So it can't be traced to a particular user. So there is no individual user tracking. So we don't have to worry about are they being tracked? That's not happening. And so I think that we now have a challenge around educating people around how this works. Because a lot of times it has to do with internal to a building, you'll be on network location provision, and that is where we actually will use publicly broadcast information